published last year, and then afterwards I shall take questions about really any of my books that you care to ask about. The opening chapter of the Ancestor's Tale explains what it's about, and we're going to begin by reading from that. It is a conceit of hindsight to see evolution as aimed towards some particular endpoint, such as ourselves. A historically minded Swift, understandably proud of flight as self-evidently the premier accomplishment of life, might regard Swift kind, those spectacular flying machines with their swept-back wings who sail aloft for a year at a time and even copulate in pre-flight, as the acme of evolutionary progress. If elephants could write history, they might portray tapirs, elephant shrews, elephant seals, proboscis monkeys, as tentative beginners along the main trunk road of evolution, taking the first stumbling steps, but each, for some reason, never quite making it. So near, yet so far. Elephant astronomers might wonder whether, on some other world, there is this alien life form that have crossed the nasal Rubicon and taken the final leap to full proboscitude.
We are neither Swift nor elephants, we are people. As we wander in imagination through some long-dead geological epoch, it is humanly natural to reserve a special warmth and curiosity to whichever otherwise ordinary species in that ancient landscape is our ancestor. It's an intriguingly unfamiliar thought that there is always one such species. It is hard to deny our human temptation to see this one species as on the main line of evolution, the others as supporting cars, walk-on paths, sideline carriers. Without succumbing to that error, there is one way to indulge a legitimate human sentiment while respecting historical propriety. That way is to do our history backwards, and it is the way of this book.
The Ancestor's Tale is cast in the form of an epic pilgrimage from the present to the past. All roads lead to the origin of life, but because we are human, the path we shall follow will be a human pilgrimage to discover human ancestors. As we go, we shall greet other pilgrims who join us at a series of rendezvous points as we encounter the common ancestor we share with each of them.
First fellow pilgrims we greet, some 5 million years ago, deep in Africa, West Stanley memorably shook hands with Livingstone on a chimpanzee. A million years further into the past, the gorillas join us, then the orangutan, next the gibbons, then monkeys, and so on, until we finally greet the bacteria, after which all the pilgrims march together in one single backward quest to the origin of life itself, life counterpoint.
Following Chaucer's lead, my pilgrims, which are all the different species of living creature, have the opportunity to tell tales along the way. It is these tales that form the main substance of the book. Incidentally, I decided to tweet to let them tell their tale in the first person singular. And as with Chaucer's tale, they're not necessarily about the teller, but they carry a message about life or evolution in general. So we shall pick out a few of the rendezvous as we go backwards and do read a few tales as we go. And the first one we're going to read is an extract from the gorilla tale, which is told at rendezvous 2 about 7 million years into our journey. The gorilla tale. The rise of Darwinism in the 19th century polarized attitudes towards the apes. Opponents who might have stomached evolution itself balked with visceral horror at cousinship with what they perceived as low and revolting brutes, and desperately tried to inflate our differences from them. This was nowhere more true than with gorillas. Apes were animals, we were set apart. Worse, there are other animals such as cats or deer could be seen as beautiful in their own way. Gorillas and other apes, precisely because of their similarity to ourselves, seem like caricatures, distortions, grotesque.
Darwin never missed an opportunity to put the other view, sometimes in little asides such as his charming observation in The Descent of Man that monkeys smoke tobacco with pleasure. Nowadays, scientists not only think we resemble apes, we include ourselves within the apes, specifically the African apes. We emphasize, by contrast, the distinctness of apes, including humans, from monkeys. We call a gorilla or a chimpanzee a monkey in politics.
It has not always been so. In former times, apes were frequently lumped with monkeys, and some of the earlier descriptions confused apes with baboons, or with Barbary macaques, which are even still known as Barbary apes. More surprisingly, long before people thought in terms of evolution at all, and before apes were clearly distinguished from each other or from monkeys, great apes were often confused with humans. Agreeable as it would be to approve this apparent precedent of evolution, it unfortunately may owe more to races. Early white explorers in Africa saw chimpanzees and gorillas as close kin only to black humans, not to themselves. Interestingly, tribes in both Southeast Asia and Africa have traditional legends suggesting a reversal of evolution as conventionally seen. Their local great apes are regarded as humans who fell from grace. Orangutan means man of the woods in Malay.
A picture of an orangutan by the Dutch Dr. Bontius in 1658 is, in T.H. Huxley's words, nothing but a very hairy woman of rather comely aspect, and with proportions that seem wholly human. For hairy she is, except, oddly, in one of the few cases where a real woman is. Her pubic region is conspicuously naked. Also very human are the pictures made a century later by Linnaeus' pupil Phocius. One of his creatures has a tail, but is otherwise wholly human, bipedal, and carries a walking stick. Pliny the Elder says that the tailed species have even been known to play a draught.
One might have thought that such a mythology would have prepared our civilization for the idea of evolution when it arrived in the 19th century, and might even have accelerated its discovery. Apparently not. Instead, the picture is one of confusion between apes, monkeys, and humans. This makes it hard to date the scientific discovery of each species of great ape, and it's often unclear which one is being discovered. The exception is the gorilla, which became known to science the most recently. In 1847, an American missionary, Dr. Thomas Savage, saw in the house of another missionary on the Gaboon River a skull represented by the natives to be a monkey-like animal, remarkable for its size, ferocity, and habits. The unjust reputation for ferocity, later to be hyperbolized in the story of King Kong, comes through loud and clear in an article about the gorilla in the Illustrated London News, published in the same year as The Origin of Species. This piece is replete with falsehoods of a quantity and magnitude that try even the high standards set by traveller's tales of the time.
A close inspection is almost an impossibility, especially as the moment it sees a man is attacked. The strength of the adult male being prodigious and the teeth heavy and powerful, it is said to watch, concealed in the thick branches of the forest trees, the approach of any of the human species. And as they passed under the tree, let down its terrible hind feet, furnished with an enormous thumb, and grasped its victim round the throat, lift him from the earth, and finally drop him on the ground, dead. Sheer malignity prompts the animal's discourse, for it does not eat the dead man's flesh, but finds a fiendish gratification in the mere act of killing.
Judging from its location, Savage's species must have been the western gorilla. The mountain gorilla was discovered, and shot it, by the German Robert von Behringer as late as 1902. As we shall see, it is now regarded as a subspecies of the eastern gorilla, and the whole eastern species now, unfairly one might think, bears his name, Gorilla beringii.
The pygmies, originally mentioned by Homer and Herodotus, as a legendary race of very small humans, were later seen by 17th and 18th century explorers to be none other than the chimpanzees then being discovered in Africa. Tyson, in 1699, shows a drawing of a pygmy which, as Huxley says, is only a young chimpanzee, although it too is depicted walking upright and carrying a walking stick. Now, of course, we use the word pygmy for small humans again.
This leads us back to the races in which, until relatively late in the 20th century, was endemic in our culture. Early explorers often assigned the native peoples of the forest a closer affinity with chimpanzees, gorillas, or orangs than with the explorers themselves. In the 19th century, after Darwin, evolutionists often regarded African people as intermediate between apes and Europeans on the upward path to white supremacy. This is not only factually wrong, it violates a fundamental principle of evolution. Two cousins are always exactly equally related to any outgroup because they are connected to that outgroup via a shared ancestor. For reasons given in the bonobo tale, all humans are exactly equally close cousins to all gorillas. Racism and speciesism and our perennial confusion over how inclusively we wish to cast our moral and ethical net are brought into sharp and sometimes uncomfortable focus in the history of our attitudes to our fellow humans and our attitudes to apes, our fellow apes.